Question number 24 to question number 27. Now these four questions come from the passage which deals with the concept of gross national happiness. It's an index which is very similar to gross domestic product or GDP. Now gross national happiness in this passage has been defined as a concept which is not simply about personal happiness. It says that happiness that is self-centered, that is irresponsible, is or can't be defined as actual happiness. It says happiness blossoms through our relationships with people. It also talks about eudaemonist view. Now, eudaemonist, this word comes from two words, or it's a combination of two words. Eu means good and daemon means spirit. So it basically talks about the Greek concept of the good spirit, or what should be called as the human spirit or essence of human spirit. Now, this is a doctrine which is mentioned by Aristotle. It says that the basis of moral obligations is to be found in the tendency of right actions to produce happiness. So it can be taken as an ethical goal. That when we are seeking happiness, we should also have a moral or ethical side to it. Now, the entire passage basically describes that what are the factors which can be uh, taken into consideration to understand a more holistic view of GNH. For example, GNH stands for the preservation and renewal of a holistic range of capital or resources: ecological, economic, social, human resource, cultural, all of which should be valued and possibly measured. So the entire passage talks about the concept of GNH. Now let's look at the questions. Question number 24 says, with reference to the above passage, the following inferences have been made, and we have to consider which of the inferences is or are valid. Now, one says GNH makes human life more meaningful and fulfilling. Now, in the entire passage, gross national happiness is mentioned as a unit of measurement. It's a way to measure happiness. But it doesn't say that it makes human life more meaningful and fulfilling. A unit of measurement will not produce that effect. It's how the unit has been applied or used or executed in real life that will produce the result. So one cannot be inferred. Two says GNH considers happiness to be the highest ethical goal. Now, from the line that we just discussed, we take a eudaemonist view of human beings. From this, we can say that GNH considers happiness to be the highest ethical goal. Hence, second one can be inferred. So the answer is B. Now let's look at the next question, question number 25. According to the passage, which of the following is or are most likely to be considered while estimating GNH? Now the three things which are mentioned are living standard, good governance, ecological diversity. Now we'll go back to this line. Ecological is mentioned, so 3 is fine. Then the next one is economic, from which we can say that living standard, it falls under economic and social category. Good governance or democracy is not mentioned anywhere. You see, it's ecological, economic, social, human resource, cultural. So good governance doesn't fall into any of these categories. So we can say 1 and 3, they're definitely likely to be considered. So the correct option for this is C. Question number 26. With regard to countries with high GNH, it can be inferred from the passage that the people of those countries, number 1, are intolerant. Now this is clearly wrong, because the passage says we have to consider the happiness of others. Otherwise our happiness will be meaningless. So 1 is clearly out. 2 says appreciate impartiality. Now this one is in a way correct, because the passage says that equality is central to GNH. If we go back to the passage, we'll see equality has been mentioned as a central factor to measure GNH. So countries with high GNH will not be intolerant, but they will definitely appreciate impartiality. So the answer to this is B, or the second option. Now the last question of this passage. According to the passage, happiness withers in the absence of relations. Now withers means deteriorates or fades away. Now here it is written that happiness that doesn't take into account the needs for others' happiness is irresponsible. It blossoms through our relationships with people. So when relationships are good, happiness will surely flourish. But in the absence of relations, what will happen, that has not been mentioned in the passage. It's a bit extreme to say that in the absence of relations, happiness will wither. So we can eliminate one. should not be self-seeking is slightly dicey because the passage says we should not be self-centered, but that doesn't mean that happiness should not consider one's own self at all. So should not be self-seeking can be eliminated because it's a slightly extreme option. The correct option should have been should have a balance between self-seeking and considering the happiness of others. So we have to be, selfless, that's for sure, but we can also be selfish at some times because the passage really doesn't talk about whether we should be totally selfless or we should not be self-seeking at all. So we can eliminate both of these options. So the answer would be